Hey folks, I want to get into something that the book doesn't really cover it as in depth as I would probably go with this, and it's also kind of an interesting uh, discussion of how northern states deal with enslavement and stuff after the Revolution. As we're moving through the American Revolution, a lot of Northerners, and especially folks from the Quaker religion, a lot of folks from the Quaker religion really start this, and especially up in Pennsylvania. But a lot of people in the North start thinking, Northern colonies start kind of feeling that, look, how in the world can I sort of ethically um, proclaim that we as American colonials are being oppressed and our freedoms are being restricted, while as enslavers we are literally doing that to someone else. There's this kind of like non sort of jiving sort of kind of thing where you're arguing that England is oppressing the American colonials, but we're doing the same thing to this other group of people, enslaved African Americans. And so Quakers, like I said, especially are going to really push this out there because Quakers, a big part of their religious ideology is pacifism. And to be an enslaver, you can't really be a pacifist. You have to employ violence at times in order to, maintain control over this other human being that is, desiring of freedom and liberty. So the Quaker community in the North really starts kind of pushing for emancipation. And then at one point, they even make a proclamation, the Quaker community as a whole, if you have enslaved people after a certain date, you will be excommunicated. And so up north, most states, as we're kind of moving through the revolution, they start thinking independence, and stuff. So as we're moving through the revolution, most states will adopt what are called gradual emancipation laws. And, the politicians are cognizant of voters, and some of those voters are slaveholders, so they don't want to just completely alienate those voters. And if we can get rid of slavery without causing financial hardship on those enslavers, then the politicians are going to do that because, they need to unfortunately look to their next election. So some states up north are going to adopt gradual emancipation laws. And I like New York's. It's got a cool date, and we can also kind of easily track it. So in 1799, a little bit after the Revolution, New York is going to pass a gradual emancipation law. And this law that they pass in 1799 says that any enslaved person that is born on or after July the 4th of 1799 will be considered free. So now there's some hang-ups with that. They do take into account that while the enslaved mother is pregnant and while she is working for several years to take care of her toddler and then child, she's not going to be earning or producing as much for her owner. And then the enslaver also has to provide food and shelter and clothing for this child. So they do put a caveat in there that male children are going to be not freed, but the best way I capture it is kind of say they're like almost like indentured servants. They're not free to leave. They have to work off a sort of a debt obligation. Male children are going to be freed when they're 28, and female children are going to be freed when they're 25. So don't have to get these numbers down, but by the 1830 census, only 75 enslaved people are in New York, so this is working. And by 1840, there are no recorded enslaved people in New York. Now, you can lie on a census, and so that's not to say that there aren't other enslaved people up in New York and stuff, and people do, try to wiggle around on stuff like that. Cooler state, Vermont. Vermont is one of the only states to just say up north during this period that, hey, when we pass this new constitution after independence for Vermont, there are no enslaved people. And so they just kind of have a that's it date. And so that's kind of cool that Vermont does that. But most northern states go for the gradual emancipation thing. I don't, I hate to say it, but politicians do have to kind of look towards the next election and stuff. Now, other states, and the one that we're going to talk about is Massachusetts, other states employ freedom suits to abolish slavery. And they're going to be, the Quaker community is very on board with pushing against slavery. And so they form legal aid societies to help out with this. So in Massachusetts, though, they do not adopt any kind of anti-slavery laws within their new constitution. They don't pass any anti-slavery laws outside of that immediately after independence. But they do include a really important phrase on their constitution. And one of the people that writes their constitution is a central figure to this story, actually, as Colonel John Ashley. And Ashley was a member of the Massachusetts legislature that drafts this new constitution. And they open that new constitution with the words, "All men are born free and equal." Okay, cool. So no one really super takes note of that it's going to be a problematic phrase for some people when they scribble that down. But in 1781, at Colonel John Ashley's house, Mrs. Ashley is in the kitchen, and in the kitchen with her are two enslaved women that are owned by the Ashleys. One of those enslaved women is Mum Bett, and there's an image of a painting of Mum Bett, along with Mum Bett's sister Lizzie. And Lizzie and Mrs. Ashley get into some sort of argument. There's some kind of disagreement that something is happening, and Lizzie and Mum Bett get into this pretty heated argument. And in the middle of this argument, Mrs. Ashley picks up a fireplace shovel. And she takes a swing at Lizzie with this fireplace shovel. And Mum Bett steps up, and she gets in the way, and Mrs. Ashley hits Mum Bett across the face with this fireplace shovel, and it's going to leave a scar across her face. Well, Mum Bett storms out of the house, understandably, absolutely. And she goes in town to a Quaker lawyer. And this Quaker lawyer is a guy named Theodore Sedgwick. And she hangs out at Sedgwick's house and tells him what happened. And Sedgwick agrees, or I don't know if he thought of, I'm guessing he knew the term for this, and so he gives her the option. But Sedgwick is going to file a freedom suit. This is a lawsuit, and in our case, this is a lawsuit that the enslaver has done something, or they are violating the law in some way to where an enslaved person might be able to get their freedom. And so Sedgwick files this lawsuit, And his argument is completely logical. He says that, look, the Massachusetts state constitution says that all men are born free and equal. And we're talking about mankind here, not just men. And so all men are born free and equal. So under the Massachusetts state constitution, Mum Bett is a part of mankind. And so she, according to this document, is born free and equal to everybody else. And the court agrees with him. And Mum Bett is going to be free. Also, very, very cool, the jury is going to fine the Ashleys 30 shillings for probably Mum Bett's pain and suffering for being struck by this shovel. Sorry. Now, that's just a local court. Okay, and so Mum Bett gets her freedom, but it just covers her, and and she's changed her name, like it said, to Elizabeth Freeman. I don't think I said that. Sorry, she does change her name to Elizabeth Freeman, which is really cool. But again, that's just a local court that just covers her. So that happened in 1781. 2 years later, another lawsuit is filed, and this is by an enslaved man named Quock Walker. It's Quock. He ran off and he filed a lawsuit, and his argument is, hey, Massachusetts state constitution says all men are born free and equal. We're also, in his case, using the legal precedent of Mum Bett versus Ashley. And his case gets appealed up to the Massachusetts State Supreme Court. And that's huge, because when that court decides this case, that if all men are born free and equal, and that covers enslaved people too, then that covers not just Quock Walker, that covers the entire state. And so he gets up to the state Supreme Court, and the state Supreme Court says, yeah, state constitution says all men are born free and equal, and Bett versus Ashley, legal precedent, says, we're interpreting this way, that this person is free, and so you're free, and then all of the enslaved people are free in Massachusetts. Now, it works kind of funny, and I'm not really sure exactly why it works this way, but each individual enslaved person in Massachusetts, rather than just the state issuing a proclamation saying, hey, the state Supreme Court says this, everybody's free. Each individual enslaved person in Massachusetts has to hear about this, which news is traveling fast, but they have to hear about this, and then they have to go to their enslaver and say, hey, this court case was recently decided. We're all free. I want my freedom. And then the enslaver technically could, fight that in court, but they're going to lose because the state Supreme Court has said so. So it's an individual demand kind of condition up in Massachusetts. Again, I don't know why it works that way, but super cool. Quock Walker, his case is decided in 1783 by the court. By 1790, just 7 years, on the next census, there are no reported enslaved people in Massachusetts. And again, you can lie on a census, and so I'm sure that some people probably hid their enslaved people from the census. So there's probably a handful, maybe, of enslaved people up in Massachusetts in the 1790 census thereabouts. But slavery is on its way to extinction in the state, and that's really cool. And I like this story because it's a unique sort of abolition thing. Now, on the other side of that, southern states are not doing any of this. Southern states, slavery is incredibly profitable. Unfortunately, southern states have completely bought into that plantation economy, and they are making an crazy amount of money, so they are not interested in flirting with even gradual emancipation or lawsuits or anything like that. Those are going to get squashed. So, but a very cool story. And so we'll see you next time.